He departed that morning for a brief 2-day business journey. Everything seems ordinary. He frequently engaged in it. I pressed my lips to his at the threshold, a familiar gesture, quick and instinctive. As the door clicked closed behind him, I found myself enveloped in the stillness of the house, caught in a delicate balance of relief and guilt. I found myself taken aback by the sudden turmoil. The routine had evolved into a source of solace. Serene dawns, pristine surfaces, neatly arranged garments, the aroma of brewed coffee mingling with the fragrance of polished wood. Suddenly, amidst the stillness, the doorbell chimed. It was his grandson, a revelation that stirred a myriad of emotions within him. Though not by blood, I was welcomed into the family years ago. Now, at 25, I find myself returning for the summer visit. It had been years since our paths last crossed. He had matured into a figure of height and breadth, his movements deliberate and measured, as if he were perpetually attuned to the world around him before making a choice. As I swung the door open, his gaze lingered on me for a moment that felt just a heartbeat too extended. Not out of disrespect, merely a gaze that lingered, contemplative. It took me by surprise, yet I managed to smile, invited him in, and prepared coffee as if it were just another ordinary visit. The initial evening unfolded with an air of calm, seemingly devoid of any underlying tension. Yet, I observed the way his gaze lingered on the framed photos adorning the wall, or how his fingers glided along the edge of the hallway table, as if he were recalling memories that transcended mere objects. I observed him from the kitchen, not with intent, merely driven by a sense of wonder. His stance exuded ease, yet his gaze betrayed a different story. They remained vigilant, observing. In the quiet of the hallway, I found myself folding laundry, draped only in a delicate cotton robe. The kind I donned solely in solitude. A floorboard creaked behind me, prompting a slight turn, though I anticipated nothing amiss. Yet, he was present. I remained unaware of how long he had been standing there, and I chose not to inquire. He offered no apology, merely locked his eyes onto mine, igniting a subtle, tingling warmth that spread across my skin. Free from desire. Not at this moment, yet, something stirred to life. A realization. I might have drawn the robe closer around me, I did not. That night, I found myself lying awake far longer than was wise. The refrigerator's hum echoed through the hallway, resonating with an unusual intensity. The bed seemed excessively spacious. I pondered how his gaze remained unwavering when it locked onto mine. I contemplated the delicate skin that draped over my shoulders, whether it retained the allure of skin worth beholding. In the past 5 years, my husband had never gazed at me in such a way. Not due to a lack of love for me, yet, it was the monotony of routine that rendered me unseen. In the stillness of the night, well past the stroke of midnight, I rose to brew myself a cup of tea. The house lay shrouded in darkness, save for the soft illumination spilling from beneath the kitchen light. He stood there, barefoot, leaning against the counter, cradling a warm drink in his hands. I halted, taken aback. He merely smiled and inquired if I would like some. The atmosphere was thick with intensity. As if a forgotten truth lingered in the air between us, patiently awaiting its moment. At what point did you cease your painting endeavors? He inquired abruptly. I blinked. It has been years since I last picked up a brush to paint. I understand, he replied. Did you once store your brushes in that vase by the window? He recalled. I'm not sure what it was that struck me so deeply. My husband was completely oblivious as I tucked them away. The quietude that enveloped us became more tender, more gentle. He remained at a distance. There was no necessity for him to do so. Within me, I sensed a transformation, yet there was no outward sign of change. Sleep eluded me that night. For the first time in years, I selected my underwear the following morning not for comfort, but for the way it made me feel beneath my clothes. It would remain unnoticed by all. Yet, I would be aware. It held significance. The morning air wafted a damp sweetness through the open kitchen window, a sensation that envelopes your skin before you even become aware of it. I navigated the house with a measured grace, each step taken with intention, as though a part of me yearned to experience every motion more profoundly than ever before. The robe I had donned was swapped for a delicate blouse, subtly translucent in the soft morning glow, paired with linen pants that caressed my hips with a gentle embrace. I chose not to wear a bra. It wasn't out of a desire to provoke. I simply had no desire to. In the backyard, he stood shirtless, spraying the weathered stone patio with a steady stream of water. The sun had caressed his skin, leaving it with a gentle, radiant glow. I lingered in the doorway, coffee mug cradled in my hand, observing him as I allowed my eyes to acclimate to the rhythm of his movements. My gaze lacked a clinical detachment. I wasn't evaluating him in the manner of a mother-in-law or a hostess. I found myself observing. I felt no guilt for that decision. Our words were few that morning. Engaged in a light-hearted exchange while enjoying toast and eggs. Yet, silence had acquired a different essence in our relationship. Electrified, never clumsy. I pondered whether he experienced it as well or if I was merely conjuring feelings to soothe the emptiness within me. At midday, I transported a basket of laundry to the utility room, the most serene spot in the house. The light in that space was gentle, diffused through a time-worn curtain, carrying the scent of detergent mingled with the essence of summer towels. I knelt down to sift through the heap, my fingers brushing against the gentle fabric of one of his t-shirts. Suddenly, I became aware of footsteps approaching. Unrushed. Calculated, he paused a mere breath away from me. I chose not to look back. I sensed his presence, the heat of his form mere inches away from my own. My breath was momentarily suspended, not by fear, but by the profound weight of the silence. My fingers clutched the fabric of his shirt, and for reasons unknown, I found myself unwilling to let it go. He knelt down next to me. Our arms grazed against each other, a measured and intentional touch. His skin radiated warmth, a subtle sheen of moisture clinging to it from the sun's embrace. I stood still, caught in a moment of sheer disbelief. My throat was parched, yet I remained rooted in place. "You always carry the scent of oranges," he murmured softly, his voice barely rising above a whisper. "I used citrus soap," I replied, my voice unfamiliar to my own ears. It emerged with a deeper, more rugged quality. Our gazes remained fixed downward. The laundry lingered between us, serving as a convenient pretext. As our hands instinctively reached for the towel, they brushed against each other, a fleeting touch that lingered in the air, delicate yet profound. Something fissured between us, subtle and unnameable. Then, I cast my gaze upon him, not a single look. A genuine gaze, piercing through his eyes. Suddenly, he drew closer and pressed his lips against mine. It was not difficult. It unfolded at a measured pace. It was intriguing, savoring. His lips were more delicate than I had anticipated, and his hand lingered just above my skin, hovering near my waist as if he were seeking permission he had not yet requested. I chose not to push him away. I remained utterly unperturbed. My body reacted swiftly, leaving no room for me to consider the repercussions. As he withdrew, his expression bore no trace of remorse, without a hint of embarrassment. Just the sensation of breathlessness, reflected within my own chest. We lingered for a moment longer, then I rose suddenly, my legs betraying a lack of steadiness I wished they possessed. I carefully folded the towel in my hands and stepped outside, silence enveloping me. Yet, I felt no sense of filth. I felt no guilt. I experienced a profound sense of clarity. The remainder of the day unfolded in the garden, where I feigned the act of pruning herbs, all the while my thoughts lingered on the kiss, playing out in my mind like a scene in slow motion. Not out of a desire to experience it again, for I found myself unable to cease. As I settled into bed that night, I instinctively reached for my phone. A message from my husband arrived, unremarkable in its content. "I simply miss you. I trust he isn't driving you to the brink of madness." I composed a response. "Everything is well here." Silence. I gazed at the screen, my finger hovering over the send button. Subsequently, the message was erased. Subsequently, it was typed once more. Identical phrases. Press the send button. It was, undeniably, a fabrication. Silence had become a distant memory. He materialized in the kitchen doorway at the break of dawn, precisely as I was filling my cup with coffee. His hair, still damp from the shower, clung gently to his forehead, while a plain t-shirt hugged his shoulders with a softness that drew my gaze longer than it perhaps should have. Initially, silence enveloped us. The atmosphere surrounding us seemed too fresh and delicate to disrupt with trivial conversation. "I have plans to visit a gallery exhibit in the city." He spoke at last, with a nonchalant air, as if the timing held no significance for him. "He purchased a pair of tickets, yet he is unable to attend. Inquired whether you would accompany me instead." He averted his gaze as he spoke the words. His gaze remained fixed on the counter, tracing the outline of a water ring beside the coffee pot with his finger. Yet, I noticed the tightness in his jaw. The proposal was devoid of any semblance of innocence. We were both aware of it. Yet, the language remained unadorned. Rational, utilitarian. I agreed. "Not at this moment." A moment lingered, crafted to simulate thoughtful deliberation. Yet within me, the response was swift and unmistakable. The thought of being confined in a car with him for hours, far removed from the comfort of our familiar routines, sent a thrilling shiver across my skin. I had already envisioned my attire. Not something explicit. A dress that possessed just the right amount of structure to serve as a gentle reminder of the body I had, one deserving of adornment. The journey stretched on, seemingly endless. The highway stretched out, flat and devoid of distinction. He refrained from playing music. I never requested it. The quietude that enveloped us was steeped in intimacy, devoid of tension. In a fleeting moment, I extended my hand toward a bottle of water, and our fingers brushed against each other. Neither of us wavered. That in itself revealed far more than intended. "Have you always been this reserved?" he inquired, his gaze fixed firmly ahead on the winding path. "I am not silent," I remarked, observing the fields slip by in a haze. "I find myself without a compelling reason to voice my thoughts." He nodded slowly, offering no further words. There was no necessity for him to do so. He comprehended. That was the quality that captivated me above all else. His talent for perceiving the unspoken words within me. The gallery was neither expansive nor bustling with visitors. The air was thick with the scent of aged wood and turpentine, while the paintings exuded a raw, textured intimacy. I meandered through the gallery, the vibrant canvases surrounding me, while he lingered just a pace behind, offering his thoughts now and then. Yet, above all, he observed me. A palpable sensation coursed through me. It was not merely the weight of his gaze that captivated, but the tenderness that accompanied it. It did not leave me bare. It enveloped me in a manner that felt almost like a shield. Later, at the hotel, I lingered beneath the cascading water of the shower, losing track of time. The water failed to wash anything clean. It rendered everything more tangible. With deliberate care, I toweled off, securing the fabric around my chest before stepping into the room. He stood by the window, resting against the frame, gazing outside. As he pivoted, his gaze locked onto mine, unwavering. Not a hint of shame nor a trace of doubt crossed their mind. It was the kind of steady, quiet intensity that I found myself yearning for. The towel wrapped around me accentuated the gentle curve of my waist, while the lingering warmth from the shower embraced my skin. After many years, I found myself acutely conscious of my identity as a woman. Not a spouse, not one to play the role of a hostess. Only I. Do you find joy in your relationship with him? He inquired. I chose not to respond. Not due to ignorance, but rather because voicing it would render it irrevocably definitive. Exceedingly irreversible. With a deliberate motion, I pivoted, crossed the threshold into the second room, and settled onto the edge of the bed. The door remained ajar as I stepped away. I found it unnecessary, that was my response. The stillness that followed the journey lingered for days. I steered clear of moments spent in his company, not explicitly. I did not confine myself to rooms or concoct tasks to occupy my time. I effortlessly embraced efficiency. She exited the kitchen as he made his entrance. Indulged in longer showers. Invested excessive hours pruning hedges that were perfectly fine as they were. I convinced myself it was a matter of self-preservation. A fresh start. If I withdraw at this moment, I might still preserve my innocence. Perhaps, if nothing else transpired, it simply didn't hold significance. Yet it happened. It resided within my muscles, as my fingers danced with anticipation upon spotting his shoes by the door. My breath caught in my throat at the sound of his voice drifting in from the next room. My body had instinctively gravitated toward him, despite my feet remaining firmly planted in place. He refrained from pressing forward. Not a single time. And that only exacerbated the situation. He carried himself with a serene dignity, exuding a sense of respect while remaining acutely perceptive. In him, there existed no trace of awkwardness, only a profound sense of anticipation. Such a form of patience poses a greater threat than mere pressure. It permits your innermost yearnings to resonate more profoundly in the stillness. One afternoon, I wandered through the living room and caught sight of his phone resting on the coffee table. The screen illuminated. A message has arrived. An image arrived from an unfamiliar number. In the end, it was curiosity that triumphed. I cast a fleeting look. I was the one. A photograph captured within the hotel, nestled in the gallery room adorned with ochre walls. I found myself laughing, one hand playfully tucked behind my ear, my head tilted ever so slightly. It seems he captured it without my awareness. I felt that it didn't enhance my beauty. I appeared vibrant. He had inscribed beneath, "You appeared more like your true self that day than I have ever witnessed." I swiftly shut the message, my heart racing, not out of fear of being found out, but from a sense of acknowledgement. Though the moment eluded my memory, its reality was undeniable. On that particular night, I pulled open the drawer of the ancient dresser that had long since fallen out of my routine. At the very bottom, nestled among scarves and forgotten stockings, rested a bra that had remained untouched for years. Pale plum adorned with delicate lace trim. The kind I once donned when I believed it held significance how I revealed myself. I donned it. It still fit, just on the edge of possibility. Yet, what truly captivated me was the sensation it evoked, the emotions I experienced. More attuned to my own essence. It was never about him, not entirely. It was a matter of recalling something I had allowed to fade away. The allure of adorning myself solely for my own pleasure, the excitement of recognizing the fabric that caressed my ribs beneath a simple blouse. I brewed a cup of tea and strolled by his door, choosing not to knock. There was no blueprint in place, no script available. Yet, a part of me rebelled against remaining in that limbo of desire and trepidation. Moments later, I rapped gently on the door, a soft, seemingly unintentional whisper of sound. He pushed the door ajar. He appeared unfazed. He withdrew a pace. Granted me the freedom to breathe. Uttered not a word. The room lay shrouded in dimness, illuminated solely by a solitary desk lamp that gently cast soft shadows over the bed and bookshelves. He neglected to extend an invitation for me to take a seat. I remained still, not approaching the chair. We remained still, gazing at one another in the silence. His gaze sought out my own. Not with hunger, but with a weight far more profound, a certain pang. "I never intended to create any confusion," he remarked. "I did not," I responded. A lengthy silence enveloped the room. The rhythm of our breaths permeated the atmosphere, measured and intentional. The subtle motion of his throat was visible as he swallowed. The quietude nestled within his grasp. I advanced a single step nearer. He refrained from making contact with me. There was no necessity for him to do so. The distance that separated us was excruciatingly poignant. My body inclined ever so slightly, a barely noticeable shift. For a fleeting instant, our lips lingered mere inches from one another. The warmth of his breath enveloped me. The very tip of my nose brushed against his cheek, yet I refrained from kissing him. I took a step back. "Good night," I murmured, holding their gaze unwaveringly. With a gentle motion, I pivoted and departed, ensuring the door whispered shut in my wake. Not due to any regret about my presence there. Yet, I found myself unprepared for the consequences that would unfold should I choose to remain. He made his way to the kitchen ahead of me the following morning. Attire is complete. Continuing to navigate as if nothing had changed, he failed to acknowledge my presence as I stepped inside. He offered me a cup of coffee, his silence speaking volumes. We found ourselves at opposite ends of the counter. Two silhouettes dance in a performance of evasion. My husband had reached out the previous evening. He mentioned that his sister was unwell. He would remain for a few additional days. Requested that I take a look at the roses. I assured him that I would. I inquired whether he required anything. He declined. We shared gestures of goodwill, disconnected. Neither of us spoke of the vacant bed. As the clock approached noon, I retrieved my cherished dress from the depths of the closet, a gentle navy hue, featuring a low back and short sleeves. It had been years since I last donned it. Not due to a lack of compatibility, yet there had been no moment significant enough to warrant the peril of exposure. I took my time in the shower, allowing the water to cascade down my spine. I removed the hair from my legs. Every inch of skin was lovingly coated in lotion. My underwear lacked any provocative flair. Silken ivory, uncomplicated. Yet, the sensation of it resting against my hips compelled me to stand taller. I chose not to wear any perfume. There was no necessity for me to be overt. As he crossed the threshold into the room, I had already arranged the table with care. Nothing too intricate, merely pasta. A crisp, vibrant salad awaits. An unopened bottle of wine, resting undisturbed for months on end. He paused at the sight of me. He donned a button-down shirt. Gently creased, as though he had donned it in the final moment. "Your appearance has changed," he uttered. The words are few. Prudent. "You do as well." We dined in a quietude that felt oddly serene, yet it was far from awkward. It possessed a singular clarity. It felt as though we were both saving our strength for an impending event. The wine lingered, scarcely disturbed, resting between us. We were not employing it as a justification. In the quiet of the kitchen, I found myself at the sink, the cool water cascading over a plate as he approached from behind. The atmosphere shifted subtly, a prelude to the sound of his approaching footsteps. He refrained from making contact with me. Not immediately. He lingered near, allowing me to sense the comforting heat of his chest against my back. "There's no need for pretense," he uttered. "Not in my presence." With deliberate slowness, I turned. Our gazes intertwined. Restraint had reached its limit, leaving no room for further control. No expanse of silence can bridge the chasm between the gnawing hunger in my ribs and the unwavering certainty reflected in his gaze. This time, the kiss unfolded with a deliberate grace. The pace was languid. His hands settled softly on my waist, as if he were posing the question that his lips had already resolved. My fingers grazed the nape of his neck, gently, with a pain I never realized I could still experience. The kiss grew more intense, not in velocity, but in mass. Our breaths intertwined in a delicate dance. His heart thudded beneath my palm. It lacked any sense of urgency. It was not prohibited. It was intentional. His touch carried no hint of remorse. I answered without a moment's pause. The gentle arch of my back met the cool surface of the counter, his fingers lingering just above the delicate hem of my dress. Yet, neither of us ventured past that point. The kiss stood as the focal point. All else thrived in its presence. Time folded in upon itself. We lingered in that moment for what felt like an eternity. Or perhaps an extended duration. I was unable to discern. At last, I withdrew. Hardly, just enough to lean my forehead against his. I find myself at a loss, uncertain of my next steps. I murmured, "There is no obligation to do so." He uttered, "Simply embrace it." We refrained from ascending the stairs. We did not lay ourselves completely open to one another. We settled on the living room floor, our backs resting against the couch, legs extended before us in quietude. My head nestled softly against his shoulder. His fingers meandered softly across my arm, creating languid patterns. Silence enveloped us. There was no necessity for that. The echoes of his lips lingered on my skin, a vibrant reminder of our encounter. He hadn't sought permission, yet he lingered in anticipation of it all the same. In the quietude, the unmistakable sound of tires crunching on gravel reached our ears. He raised his gaze. I jolted awake. From our vantage point by the front window, partially obscured by the curtains, we caught sight of a familiar car easing its way into the driveway. My husband arrived home ahead of schedule. The sound of his car idling in the driveway resonated like a breath held in, finally released into the open air. In that fleeting instant, we remained still. We simply gazed out the window, as if our collective will could somehow summon him to vanish once more, to turn the key in the ignition and retreat from our hidden truth. Yet he chose not to. The engine sputtered and fell silent. The stillness that followed resonated with a clarity that eclipsed any sound. I rose gradually, my fingers gliding over the fabric of my dress, quivering with uncertainty, not out of fear. Panic erupts in chaos and clamor. This was more pristine, more precise, akin to a scalpel effortlessly slicing just beneath the skin's surface. He slipped silently behind me, his lips sealed in quietude. Yet, I sensed the tension emanating from him, akin to steam rising from damp concrete beneath the sun's relentless gaze. Yet, the door remained closed. Moments drifted by. Then moments. I gazed once more through the slender opening in the curtain. The driver's side lay vacant. No silhouette drew near to the vehicle. The porch stood empty, devoid of any presence. The passenger door remained shut. "He didn't come in," I remarked, my voice softer than I had anticipated. "Perhaps he overlooked something. Perhaps he is merely passing through," he responded. Yet, his voice lacked the weight of conviction. "There is a necessity to provide clarification. Please provide an explanation." We remained in silence, poised and patient. Yet, the moment failed to reach its peak. Gradually, the car eased back, gliding out of the driveway and vanishing beyond the bend of the road. He arrived with a purpose, only to reconsider his intentions. Perhaps he had lingered there, observing the house, and noticed something in the subtle movement of the curtains or the soft illumination of the lights that compelled him to hesitate. I will forever remain in the dark about what he witnessed. Or what he believed he beheld. I chose not to return to the couch. I averted my gaze from him. I ascended the stairs, cleansed my face, brushed my teeth, and donned a nightgown adorned with sleeves. Impartiality, a complete obliteration of the events that transpired just an hour prior. The following morning unfolded with a languid stillness. He averted his gaze, and I allowed it to happen. I poured the coffee, folded the napkins, and arranged everything with meticulous care. As though restoring order could cleanse the chaos we had allowed to emerge. By the afternoon, he had completed his packing. He mentioned that it was time for him to return to the city. There is an intriguing development on the horizon regarding a forthcoming project. A looming deadline. Ambiguous phrases linger in the corridor. I did not request his presence to linger. He made no inquiry about whether he ought to. We lingered by the door, time stretching beyond necessity. He cast his gaze in my direction. Truly observed, as though committing to memory the contours of my visage beneath the glow of the corridor light. I harbor no regrets. He uttered, "I shall never be." I took a deep breath. Her lips parted, yet silence lingered in the air. He inclined his body ever so slightly, a subtle shift forward. So near that I could catch the subtle scent of citrus from the detergent lingering on his collar. Yet, he refrained from kissing me. This time, it shall not be so. He pivoted, unlatched the door, and stepped into the arid, golden embrace of the afternoon. Hours later, I found myself ensconced in the very living room where our lips had first met. All things continued to reflect the essence of his being. The wine glasses that remained untouched, the throw pillow bore the delicate trace of his back. I extended my hand toward my phone, paused for a moment, and then began to look for his name. No message, there was no call. There are no words that could ease the pain in my ribs or occupy the void he created. That evening, I found myself in bed beside a pillow that still held the lingering essence of my husband. I yearned to experience a sensation. Remorse. Fury. Yet, all I experienced was an unfiltered intensity. No shame, only a gentle, unyielding pulse remains in the place of my former restraint. As dawn broke, I arrived at a decision that eluded my own understanding. I gathered a modest overnight bag, nothing particularly dramatic, and boarded a train bound for the city. I confided in no one. I didn't reach out to him at all. I wandered through unfamiliar streets. Structures that once housed the echoes of different existences, and allowed the anonymity to envelop me as if it were a second skin. It lacked the essence of liberation. The atmosphere was charged with a sense of confrontation. I was not fleeing from anything. I found myself moving toward a forgotten part of my being, long concealed beneath the layers of tidy laundry and the comforting rituals of Sunday dinners. By the contours of my recollection, I navigated my way to his apartment building. It is not a dress. I chose not to enter. Instead, I made my way across the street, discovered a quaint little cafe, and settled into a seat by the window. Cradling a tepid cup of tea, he gazes at his building across the street. Being in proximity to his world was sufficient. That will suffice for the moment, not to disparage. I arrived home just as the sun began to set. The sun hung languidly on the edge of the horizon, streaking the pavements with elongated, golden hues. The ache in my feet is a testament to the long walk I've endured. Not from afar, but from the way I had clenched my body throughout the day. It felt as though I was desperately attempting to contain a torrent of emotions, fighting to prevent them from overflowing. No one seemed to realize my absence. There are no messages. There are no missed calls. There is no urgency. It was peculiar. The ease with which an individual might slip away from their own existence, unnoticed by those around them. I felt no sorrow regarding it. I found myself utterly captivated, a captivating allure that compels you to press against a bruise, yearning to trace its contours. That evening, I adorned myself with a fragrance that had lain dormant for 2 decades. It was a crisp floral concoction I donned on our early dates, back when we first tied the knot. In those days, it stirred a sense of audacity within me. I felt as though I had been granted the right to occupy my own space. I delicately misted it behind my ears and across my collarbone. It carried the scent of my past self, not the essence of who I had become. And perhaps the person I still aspired to become. I chose not to wear it for anyone's sake. He was absent. My husband had not yet returned from his trip to visit his sister. Yet, I donned it as though someone might draw near and etch my presence into their memory. His return was unexpected, a sudden arrival that caught everyone off guard. He stepped inside with his characteristic tranquility, set his keys in the bowl by the door, and bestowed a kiss on my cheek, the same absent-minded warmth he consistently provided. Yet, there came a moment of stillness. He reclined a bit, inhaling the atmosphere softly. "You're wearing that vintage perfume," he remarked. I inclined my head, nonchalantly, discovered the bottle. I decided to don it once more. He cast his gaze in my direction, truly observed, for the first time in weeks. Not with doubt, at least not at this moment. Yet there lingered a feeling that danced between intrigue and doubt. It felt as though I was searching my memory to determine if I had donned it for another not long ago. I averted my gaze before he could make up his mind. On that evening, we shared a meal together, engaging in courteous dialogue. A silence, carefully cultivated over years of shared existence, where the depths remain unexamined. I inquired about his sister. He provided me with an ambiguous update, accompanied by a question that seemed almost excessively nonchalant. "Is he still here? What of the boy?" "A few days ago," I mentioned. I remained unperturbed. He mentioned he had some work to do. He inclined his head in acknowledgement. He savored another bite of chicken. Uttered not a word. After dinner, I ventured outside with a glass of wine, settling onto the back porch as the sky transformed into shades of bruised purple. I could hear him bustling about within, shutting cupboards and rinsing off plates. Life is finding its form once more, yet, my involvement had shifted. I no longer felt the same connection. A notification chimed on my phone. Just a single word, "Yet." I gazed at it intently. Heart pounding, forever yearning for you. Forever etched in memory. Continuing to smolder, I chose not to respond. As dawn broke, the house resonated with a chorus of voices. Visitors are coming to celebrate my husband's birthday, relatives, nearby residents, and a handful of co-workers from his workplace. A gathering that appeared seamless at first glance, yet demanded meticulous planning and coordination behind the scenes. I fulfilled my role, beaming in the kitchen, refilling wine glasses, and responding to jokes I had encountered thrice prior. Then I pivoted. There he stood, poised at the entryway in a pristine white shirt, sleeves casually rolled up, his jaw set in a subtle tension as if he had not intended to arrive yet found himself unable to resist the pull of the moment. I was unaware that he would be present. No one informed me. He likely arrived due to an invitation from someone, perhaps under the assumption that I would be absent, or maybe with the hope that I would be present. Amidst the throng, our gazes intertwined. It lingered for a moment too extended. He remained expressionless. I did not either. Yet, an unspoken connection lingered between us all the same, a pact. A wound that reopens. As we moved through the hallway, our shoulders grazed ever so gently, a fleeting moment of connection. "I never stopped," he murmured softly. I did not either. I responded, my voice scarcely rising above a whisper. Our connection was palpable, yet we remained untouched, and somehow, that was enough. Every fiber of my being had once more shifted its focus toward him. The subsequent days unfolded as if I were wading through a dense, unyielding sea. All felt slower, denser, imbued with a heaviness I couldn't dispel. He had vanished once more, returning to the city after the festivities had ended. And yet, he was not. His presence lingered in the corners of the room, nestled into the fabric of the sofa cushions, and settled uncomfortably in the back of my throat. The hallway mirror, against which he leaned, remained untouched by my cleaning efforts.